What's the weirdest way you gained a friend? I was eating dinner in the restaurant of a really run-down hotel in Winnipeg, because my company's travel person accidentally booked me in the wrong hotel. I was the only person in the entire eating area, so the server and I got chatting. He learned I was American, so he said, "We have one other American staying in this hotel. Let me call him and you guys can meet each other." Before I could say no, he was on the phone with this guy, and he came down to join me. We've been friends ever since. One night I went out to eat with this guy, and we brought the waiter and his boyfriend along. It was awesome. I went to a high school that required the PSAT. While waiting with my mom before the test, a really pretty blonde girl came over to ask me if there was math on the test. I said yes, and she sighed, said thanks, and went back to her dad. Months later, I'm sitting alone on a bench at my fancy new school on orientation day. My parents worked and couldn't stay with me like most other students. I am really shy, so I resigned myself to surviving the day. But then I hear a girl yell out, "You! I know you!" When I realized she was talking to me, I was so startled. She said, "We took that stupid test together." It clicked and I realized that's the really pretty girl from the PSAT. So I just kind of nodded and said yeah. She literally grabbed my wrist and yanked me off the bench and said, "Hang out with me." Quote, "She became my best friend for all of freshman year. We would sing the Chicago soundtrack as loud as we could on campus, talk about great rock music, and could make each other laugh for hours." She transferred after freshman year, but 14 years later I still can say she's one of my best friends. We live on opposite ends of the East Coast and talk only now and then. But when we do, it's like nothing ever changed. Though she went on to be an influencer and I'm quietly doing desk work. We went on our crazy different paths without losing an ounce of love for each other. I wanted to go to see a movie, Black Panther, but everyone else had already seen it, and this one dude was like, "I'm going with you so you don't have to watch it alone." Now he is my best friend. Cherish him, bro. I was about 15 when I went on Omegle to talk to new people out of Burrito, Missouri. A few flips into it, I land on a boy that looked about my age. We started talking on video chat and got along really well. So he added me on Facebook after some "Are you real" vetting from Facebook. I got him my number, where we called and texted almost constantly. He was only about 4 hours away from me, so once we both were able to drive, we met up halfway. After that, he remained very close to me. We went to prom together. He'll come here for special events and festivals, and as adults we each have a spare bed if they need to stay the night. He's been in my life for about a decade now, and still, I'm amazed that it's all by chance of a random internet site. I met my boyfriend the same way. We met on Omegle and added each other on Snapchat. We became close, really close very quickly, and started online dating after a month. He lived on the other side of the country but came to visit me for spring break. After that I moved to his state to be with Monsieur. We've been together for 3.5 years now. She fainted in the lecture hall. I went to look after her. Turns out she lived down the hall from me. Another person. During move-in in my building, University Town, pretty much everyone moves in at the end of August. I overheard her complain in the elevator that she forgot to pack a kettle and was really upset about it. My roommate and I both brought the same Walmart kettle, so I offered this stranger mine. We're still best friends 5 years later. I saw a new girl at school in my history class. She was shy, but when a dude mouthed off at her, she told him to fuck off with no hesitation, and I knew I wanted to be her friend. I chased her down in the parking lot and quoted that "Can I have yo number?" skit to make her laugh. We've been best friends for 11 years now, and we are more like sisters. I was waiting behind the corner to scare my friend. Totally scared the new kid at school. I quickly said sorry and threw him behind me, so I could scare my intended target. We became great friend. and we still laugh about it. Freshman year of college I bought ice cube trays in a 4-pack cause it was cheaper. But I only needed one. Knocked on random people's doors in my dorm to get rid of the other 3 and then ended up making a squad for life. Single quote. I was at a diner and I saw someone. He saw that I was looking at him and walked up to me and said, "Hi. Can I buy you a drink?" We had a nice chat and went to town where I bought him Abbey Road by the Beatles. We continued to hang out after that, always meeting at that same diner. He is my boyfriend now, and plot twist, I'm gay. Unexpected 2 subverted my expectations. I was in my auto mechanics class my senior when a sophomore from another school sat in front of me. He pulls up his sweater revealing he had a Volbeat shirt on underneath. I had missed their concert from being out of town and the shirt he had was from that one. I told him I was gonna fucking murder hi monsieur. He asks me why. For his goddamn shirt. That dude has been like a brother to me for the last 7 years. Our landlord had to arrange my wife and I to move into our new apartment the day that the current tenant was moving out. It was a stressful but necessary arrangement. As we were moving our respective stuff in and out, we got to chatting and ended up having a ton in common with this guy. We get discounted coffee from his work every time we stop in. Well, my first day of school when I was 4, I sat down crying my eyes out because I didn't want my parents to leave me in what seemed like a prison to my 4-year-old self. On my table is this jigsaw in the shape of a chicken that I start playing around with as I begin to relax. Then this other boy sits right next to me staring at me. He takes a look at my jigsaw, yanks it off me, breaks it all up again and throws it around. We then decided to stare at each other for what seemed like 5 minutes straight. We have now been very close friends for 15 years so far. With a pun, a bad one. Short story. I was in London for the first time and was at a pub. First of all, I am American. Do you guys put something different in your beer? I ask because I've been as drunk as I was that night before. But I've never been so wobbly in my life. Like usually I can keep my balance pretty well, but at the end of the night I was barely walking. Like the rest of the gents leaving the pub. Anyways, some drunk local turned over and puked on my shoulder in the middle of the pub. I didn't know at first and looked over my shoulder to see what happened. Passing my nose right over the vomit puddle resting on my shoulder. The stench immediately hits my nose and I vomit in the dude's face. I felt bad because he for sure got some in his mouth, so we both went to the bathroom to help each other clean up. We then both decide we gotta piss and our drunk asses somehow ended up pissing on each other too. Once that happened we started dying laughing and then the night carried on. I saw the same dude at the same pub 2 days later and we hit it off now that we were sober. We ended up exchanging numbers and texted each other to play games and other stuff when I went back to the States. He even met me down in Barcelona when I went 2 years after we met. I still text him all the time too. Hi, my name is Nina and I'm socially awkward. Quote, she told me after our first PE class together. So glad I met her. One day I was crying and she came up to me and talked to me after I stopped crying. She didn't know I was crying. It made me so happy that I started bawling again. Nina is literally one of the nicest people I know, and she's just always positive. But her first words to me were super funny. Even at the time, Pyro main and TF2 that kept one-shotting me with a sign. I main sniper, by the by. A sign. There was a fire drill at school at my 7th class was lined up outside next to the 9th graders. I saw a girl with a weird hoodie that I thought was cool, so I complimented her on it. Something I very rarely do due to my social anxiety. She thanked me and asked if I read the comic it was from and I said no. After that day I started reading it and whenever I bumped into her in the halls we'd talk about it. We quickly became really good friends. I slept over at her house. She went on vacation with me. We went out to eat together, etc. I miss her. My story is very similar. I was extra shy in school, but I kept seeing this other kid in the hallways who wore a jacket from a show I liked. I also had that jacket, so I kept trying to wear it and hope they'd approach me. Until one day we were both wearing it and I had a moment of courage to be the one to talk to. This year we exchanged phone numbers and got to hang out a few times, including going on an out-of-state trip together. Before I moved away, this was 2 or 3 years back, I was at a sand volleyball bar and restaurant 400 miles from home on vacation. Bunches of pickup games. But I knew absolutely nobody, and was having trouble joining in. I was sitting on a bench, next to one of the courts, and this guy comes and sits down next to me with a distinctive tattoo. We made small talk and told him my story. After a while, I asked him, "Is that a Mandalorian crest tattoo?" Quote. He gets this shocked look on his face, then smiles and says, Yeah, it is." Quote. He introduces me to everybody and makes sure I'm included in all the games that night. I had a blast. I made a post on our teenagers where I have everybody cake. This guy starts DMing me and we've known each other since. I was at one of my town fairs and a person in front of me was jokingly saying, "Friends for sale, who wants some new friends?" And I said, "I want to take them, but it'll be your friend." And then every time we saw each other we'd scream, "Hello friend," until we finally decided to talk like normal human beings. In middle school, for whatever reason, there were no doors on the bathroom stalls in the boys' bathroom, or no one used them from my experience. But one day I went to pee after school in 7th grade and this guy was sitting there. I was shocked. He said, "What's the matter? You never seen somebody take a shit before?" I laughed. Our shared warped humor made us best friends after that until his death. Leukemia. 9 years later, I am sitting in class, reading out loud, and I stop to let the person behind me catch on reading. He doesn't say anything. I turned around. "It's your turn," I said politely. He blushes bright red and stays silent, so instead the person behind him reads aloud. The kid looks relieved. After class I caught up with the kid and sit with him at lunch. We've been best friends since 6th grade. I made a joke on a Facebook post about emo bands and some random girl my age started going off on me about how disrespectful I was being. She messaged me the next day to bitch some more. Then we talked a bit. 4 years later she's my best friend. I met my best friend at a psychiatric hospital. We were in the mother plus baby ward for mothers with postnatal depression. Those babies are turning 10 this year. Not extremely weird, but I've gained friends at conferences thanks to looking ethnically ambiguous. At one conference a shy Indian girl approached me because she thought I was a fellow Indian. At another conference, a girl from Peru approached me because she thought I was Latinx. The great part is that we ended up having a lot in common. Had a good time during the conferences together, and I still occasionally talk with one of them even. We only met that one time several years ago. I still remember when I was a kid and was walking down to the playground near where I lived. Some kid yelled out his window if I wanted to be friends. I said sure, and we went and played at the playground and were friends until I moved a couple years later cause mom was in military. Once a lonely 8 years old me was sitting on a bench beatboxing. One kid thought it was awesome, and we became friends. Then he introduced me to his friends. In that 1 week, I went from having 0 to 7 friends lol. I still keep in contact with 5 of them lol. Well, my booty for Alaska told me to listen to a podcast. It's a great podcast, I'm just plowing through it. Then, they make a joke about a local brewery. A small local brewery. So I'm thinking these guys are the next towners over from me. Shoot them an email, saying I like this show, and sending some local love. They get back to me asking if I want to play a tabletop RPG one-shot with them. And they're only a 10 minutes drive from me. We live in the same town. Of course I do. So it goes great. Now I have some awesome friends and I'm on their second podcast. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.